Norman, welcome to Adulting with Autism.
Thank you so much, April, for having me here. And I'm so excited to be able to share whatever I can with you today.
So, for all my audience out there that's new to Norman, who are you and what do you do?
Okay. Well, I am technically, I'm still a mortgage broker, mortgage banker, and I've been doing that for 44 years, if you can believe that. Really a
Oh my God, I
long,
can't fathom
long
that.
time. But, but the most important part of my life right now is not banking, that's for sure. In the last several years, I've transitioned to become a personal coach, a life coach. And I'm also changing kind of my whole lifestyle as I go into retirement, meaning I'm not, just drifting into nothingness or watching Netflix or relaxing or going to the beach or watching Netflix or things like that. I'm creating a vibrant, exciting, adventurous life, even more adventurous than my standard career for all these years. So now I sing cabaret in cabaret venues here in New York City. I have my own one man show. Right. It's so great. I'm perfecting my handstand, which is really hard to do for somebody who's 72 years old.
Wait, what?
Yeah, yeah, standing on my hands. Yeah, standing on my hands. It's the greatest thing in the world. It's you see, my whole focus these days, April, is challenging my head and my brain to become I don't know, more vibrant, more adventurous. And I think that's so important, especially for people as we get older. Not necessarily, I'm already 72, but it doesn't matter whether you're 30 or 40 or 50 or however old you are. If you don't keep growing, if you don't keep creating those new neural networks, what happens is that your whole body, your whole brain, everything atrophies. Everything does. And so you just got to keep on growing and you keep on going. And so many people, especially those who are retired, and not necessarily just retired, but people in 50s as well, but they kind of just drift. And that's not me. I'm creating the whole new me. And that's what I'm all about these days.
So, was there like a specific moment when you're like, well, this version of success doesn't fit me anymore? I'm pivoting.
Great question. Really, and it happened just by coincidence. I owned a large mortgage company here in New York, Brooklyn and Manhattan. And one of my employees was a marathon runner, 26 miles. Sometimes she did half marathons too, but she did the very long ones in London and Paris, Tokyo. She was all over the world. So one day we were just sitting at lunch talking and I said, Monica, how do you do that? I was, by the way, 59 and a half. I was almost 60. How do you do like that's nuts, and I was a little bit overweight at the time and things like that. Norman, it's so much fun. Fun? Are you kidding me? I can't even run 100 yards and you're talking about fun, right? Anyway, she was so considerate. She said, Norman, look, I think you could do it. Why don't I train for the Brooklyn Half Marathon? It was coming up in like 4 months. I'll train with you. I'll give you advice on how to get started and we'll run the race together. I, I thought she was out of her mind, but whatever. It was what it was. And I said, okay, it was just coincidental. Like, okay, I took the opportunity as it presented itself. Do you know what I'm saying? Sometimes life drops opportunity into your hand, into your lap, and you decide, oh, I'll take it. Yes, I'll take that opportunity. Why not? So what happened is I trained and trained and trained. And because my offices were in Manhattan and in Brooklyn, and the half marathon was in Brooklyn, I was announcing it, and all my realtors and the people that I know in business came out to cheer me on. I had my name emblazoned across my chest. Go Calvo, go Calvo, go Calvo. So ever since then, it was amazing. But ever since then, I've run 12 half marathons and also the New York City full marathon, the full 26.2 mile marathon. And I love it. My most recent one was a month and a half ago, the Nashville half marathon. It was spectacular. I mean, really, really great. Lots of fun. So she was right. But what happened, making the change, I got to tell you, April, was just happenstance. I mean, a couple of years later, I was filling out some mortgage applications with a couple of opera singers that came into my office. They were nervous and they wanted to fill it out together. I said, okay. And the wife said to me, Norman, my God, you must be a terrific singer. Singer? Me? You got to be kidding. Right. Oh, you have a wonderful voice. Well, if you don't do any singing, you must do voiceovers, right? No, no voiceovers, none of that stuff. But it turned out we filled out the application. She was giving singing lessons down the street from my office. And she said, Norman, want to take singing lessons? It's right down the street. The Brooklyn Academy of Music was right down the street from my office. Okay, Sarah, fine, I'll do. Well, that turned into a 10-year odyssey of a rock choir, cabaret group, singing group, and now I do my own one-man show. So it's kind of like it keeps evolving, April. Life keeps evolving, and that's what's so exciting about it. It's so wonderful. Yeah.
Well, looking back, now that you've pivoted to this whole new life area, were
Yeah.
there like red flags that you kind of ignored, like burnout, boredom?
Well, yeah, that's fascinating because you're right. I never thought of it that way, but um I was a little bit, quite a bit overweight, I'll be honest with you. And, I said to myself a couple of times, this is just before Monica talked to me about the marathons. In New York, you have all these subway stairs and you have to climb up the stairs half the time. Usually there's no escalators. You climb up the goddamn stairs. And I was getting out of breath. I was 59, getting out of breath, climbing up subway stairs. Now, of course, I had a couple of briefcases that I was carrying. So it wasn't all that easy, but I I noticed that I was out of shape. I noticed that I was overweight. But more importantly, what was happening was that I reached a stage where I still liked my work. I still liked my clients, but I reached a stage where I kept saying to myself, there's got to be more to life than just this. I mean, I was working 10, 12 hours a day easily every single day. And I was at the top of my game. I'll be honest with you, I really was. But I kept saying, there's more to this. There's got to be more to this. There's got to be more to this. And it used to be fueled to kind of like lessen that feeling of boredom. It used to be fueled by taking these wild, incredibly expensive vacations with my wife and kids. I mean, we would go to Spain for 2 weeks. We would go to Italy for 2 weeks. Thank God I had enough money to do it. And so the boredom was fueled by, lessened by that. But then I said, no, there's more to it than just vacations. I can't just have a 2 week, you know, interim period in my life and then work 50 other weeks. I've got to have a whole life. So that's kind of what was going on as I entered my 60s. It got really the little voice in the back of your head. Sometimes that happens to a lot of people. You see it in movies all the time. Well, I got to tell you, it's real. That little voice, you got to pay attention to it because if you don't, you might wind up regretting it. At the end of your life, you might regret so many things because you haven't done what your whole heart and soul is telling you to do. So that's what was going on with me. Yeah.
So I know a lot of my listeners are in their 20s and 30s, and already they're like, fuck, did I pick the wrong field? So, what does that feel like in your daily life?
Picking the wrong field, like if I were to give advice to people in their 20s and 30s,
Yeah, because you
well,
just shifted. You're like, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go run. I sing now. I'm like, I would have never thought.
yeah, yeah. Well, I had the benefit of being older. Now that's very, very true. But had I been I remember when I was younger, there were a lot of these little thoughts in the back of my head that also came up that I just dismissed. I disregarded them and I said, "No, not for me. No, you just can't do that." One of my biggest regrets, and I'll get to the story about people changing careers, but I remember when I was much, much younger, I was in my career already, and started to get very, very busy, and I had 4 kids and a housekeeper to take care of, and all these expenses, and I deliberately kind of said, "You know what? I better not return that phone call from my friend. I don't think I have enough time for this. I don't have enough time for friends. I don't have enough time for socializing. I don't have time for this, I don't have to." Well, in the back of my head all the time was, "Norman, that's probably not a smart thing to do. Norman, that's not." But I was worried about the money, the money, the money, the money. So for people in their 20s and 30s, that sound in the back of their head that maybe they chose the wrong career, take a look at that seriously, because the fear of, you know, continuing along a path of not doing what your heart and soul is telling you to do, the regret will be so monumental as the years go by that it's just not worth it. Be courageous, take that chance, take that little movement and try it in a little way. If you want to change from, being, I don't know, let's say working for HBO or working for a big corporation, and you want to maybe start coding on your own, or maybe you want to be self-employed and do something kind of different, but create your own hours and create your own skills and your own job, do that, because that ultimately is going to improve your life if you follow the back of your head, that little voice behind.
So I know for a lot of neurodivergent young adults, they can confuse their identities with like performance, grades, jobs. What have you learned about separating who you are versus what you do?
Yeah, that's a tough one. That is a really, really, because a lot of us when we're young, we don't know who we are. We only know what we do. And it takes so much maturity to kind of sit with yourself and say, this is who I am. And I've got to acknowledge that. I've got to consciously, and I'm only now coming to that realization myself. God, I just finished, I mean, it's crazy, but I just finished a singing lesson with one of my cabaret teachers. And a lot of people don't know this song, but there's a song in the play, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, where there's a song called This Is the Moment. And in that portion of the play, Dr. Jekyll is thinking that he's creating this magical potion. He's going to be the greatest person in the world. Well, it turns out he's going to be a monster, but nobody knows that at the time. And he doesn't know it at the time either. But for me, that song is a realization. This is the moment that I'm finally realizing at 72 of who I really am. Now, all those years I was a banker, but I had this thing in the back of my, well, maybe I can be a singer. Maybe I can be athletic. Maybe I can do a handstand. Maybe I can do a marathon. Maybe. And when you finally come to the realization of who you really are, that's when your life really, really begins. So if I were to give advice to somebody who's 20, 25, 30, and they want to kind of figure themselves out, well, there's always therapy, of course. There's always coaching. But, there's that. Yeah. But take some time for yourself and determine what you really want in life. Who is it? What do you enjoy? What is it, just the money? Is it just the career? Is it just, the prestige of being a doctor, a lawyer, a businessman? What is it that you want? And don't be afraid of telling the world who you are and who you want to be, because the being is so much more important than the doing all the time.
So
Yeah.
you yourself have a podcast and you
Yes.
talk about learning as building new neural pathways
Yes.
and not instant success, which a lot of young adults think college, trajectory up. How does seeing learning this way change the pressure people put on themselves?
What do you mean? Over and done? I finished university and now I'm done with learning, or what exactly?
Or like they're seeing once I'm done with school, then I'm automatically going to be successful and have no caveats in life. Or, you know, they put pressure on themselves to perform.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, that it's a unfortunate part of our educational system too. This whole idea of get yourself through high school, get yourself through college, and then get a good job. But the truth of the matter is nobody really tells us that in order to be truly successful, you've got to continuously educate and re-educate yourself all the time, especially nowadays as the internet and, ChatGPT and all this AI products and things like that are coming on board. I mean, those people who are not going to re-educate themselves constantly are going to be left in the cold because even corporations now are saying, okay, older people, if you, myself included, older people, if you're not going to learn the new way of using AI, I don't know if we're going to have a job for you. And that's the most important thing that, young people have to understand that just because you got your degree doesn't mean that you're going to be set for life because you certainly are not. Doctors, for example, they've always known that if they didn't learn new procedures or new drugs or new ways of treating patients, well, they're not going to have a thriving business at all. And the same with attorneys and the same with so many people. And so the key here for younger folks, especially, is okay, you got your degree, and that's wonderful, but keep on learning and keep creating those neural pathways because the more you keep on learning new things, the more you keep on changing, the more opportunities will avail themselves to you. The more money you probably will make, and the more you'll be in high demand with either corporations or with clients. If you want to be self-employed and things like that. So you just got to keep on learning, and that's the key to having a successful life.
When you coach people that are designing like their third act, what's one exercise you use to help them uncover what they actually want?
Well, yeah, yeah. Well, you know what? It's so funny that you're asking that, April, because nobody remembers what they loved to do when they were kids. I've asked so many people, well, I don't have any hobbies. I don't know what I want to do with my life. Well, let me ask you a question then. Can you do me a favor? And most of them will do it. I want you to write down, you don't have to tell me right now, but I want you to write down for me the 10 most exciting things that you used to do when you were a kid. What did you do? What did you love to do? Oh, I love to draw. Oh, I love to create images of houses. Oh, I love the piano. Some of them haven't played the piano in 40 years, right? But they loved it. Oh, I love gardening. I loved it. And you see these things, and then once they have it written down, it's no longer just this general idea anymore, things that they don't think about. But once they write it down and send it to me, they have to send it to me, right? Because that little extra detail, write it down and send it to me, it obligates them. It right then and there, it's oh, I told Norman. Yeah, I did tell Norman that. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. And yes, I did love playing the piano. And yes, I did love playing basketball. I wasn't so good at it, but I loved doing it. And I love talking to friends to give them advice. Oh, that's what you love to do. Oh, okay. Well, then maybe you could become a coach. Maybe you could volunteer at some school to become, a basketball, assistant coach. There's so many things to do, but that's the key because they've forgotten what they loved doing. And that's the step towards having something fascinating to create or fascinating to create as you grow older. What did you love to do? Can you see yourself doing it again? Yeah.
Like, what's a small experiment that someone could take like this month toward a life that better fits them and be brave to do it?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, w- I haven't given somebody advice like that, April. But if I were now to design on the spur of the moment, because it's a great question, if I were to design something on the spur of the moment, I would say, okay, take one or two of those things that you really love, and now go into ChatGPT, because a lot of people need assistance here. They do. Not just from me, but a general, assistance from ChatGPT or wherever, or your best friend. It could be your best friend too. But go inside ChatGPT or your best friend and create steps towards fulfilling what you really love to do. All right. So just give an example. Let's say somebody really used to love playing the piano. All right. Well, what's step number one? Do you have a piano at home? No. Okay. Well, if you enter something like that into ChatGPT, I loved to play the piano when I was a kid. All right. Well, maybe you can rent a piano. Maybe you can, get a little one of those electronic things. And maybe there's tons of online, piano courses now that you can take. There's tons of new styles of learning how to play the piano. So what they've got to do is expand their horizons to see what ways of recreating their love exist now. Because let's face it, your mom and dad are not going to pay for your piano lessons anymore. They're long gone. Right? They're not around, right? And piano lessons, private piano lessons are very expensive, because that's what I'm finding as well, April, especially for older people, is that the money issues sometimes come up in a very awkward way. They have money, right? But maybe they don't want to spend so much of it. Private piano lessons could cost upwards of $100 to $125 an hour. Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're expensive. Yeah. And so, what do you do? Well, okay, don't stop there. Don't take the obstacles as eternal obstacles. Take them as opportunities to find ways around them. And that's what I like to teach the older individuals. I mean, it applies to younger people too, because every time you come up to an obstacle, what's the way to get around it? How do you do that? And what is it? What are the ways that you can overcome that obstacle? And once you get them to start thinking about this, and sometimes you need ChatGPT, or you need a friend, or you need a coach, or you need somebody to kind of give you little hints, because sometimes that negativity gets involved, gets in the way. And you don't need the negativity. It just doesn't do you any good, right? Well, what does it serve you, right? But if you go beyond that obstacle and find ways around it, oh my God, it opens up their mind. It opens up their head. And, oh, I could really do that. Oh, I really could do. Yeah, you really could do that. So that's what I would do.
So when you think about your 20-year-old self
Yeah.
or your 20 something, what do you wish he knew about aging, possibility, or that you'd be singing in a cabaret?
I wish that someone had a teacher, a mentor, or educational system. Can't take that call. Um, I wish, and I'm sorry that I didn't turn that off. Um, I wish an educational system or a mentor or a coach would have set down the rules of life for a much, much better way of living. I mean, I was living a very lopsided life for 30, 35 years. I mean, hardly ever exercised, uh, did not eat right. Uh, as I mentioned, the socialization was poor because I devoted so much time to work. So, what I would have loved to have heard when I was much younger is to be much more, uh, what's the best word there? Uh, much more involved with the totality of life rather than one aspect or one other aspect or other aspect. You've got to be more wholesome and more creative with every single part of life, socialization, your wife or your spouse, your kids, your health, your exercise, your hobbies, all these types of things. It would have been better had I known that I should not have been so lopsided for so many years, because now I'm just undoing all that lopsidedness from those previous years. And okay, so that's it. I'm glad at least I recognize that now, but it would have been better had I recognized it when I was in my 20s. And I hope people in their 20s recognize that too, because you should, yeah, got to have a better life.
My final question for you, Norman, is where can people find you, your podcast Against the Norm, if
Yeah.
they want to contact you?
Oh, thank you for asking, April. So, of course, Against the Norm is on Spotify and Apple Tunes, and so they can find me there. But I also have a Substack that people might really love to read, and it's a Substack.Norman Calvo. And you just type my name in with Substack, and you'll find my Substack. It's an article about having fun and creating interesting experiences whenever, whether you're 20, 25, or 30, or whenever you are. That would be, a really, really good place to start. Of course, I'm on LinkedIn and I'm on Facebook and Instagram and all that kind of stuff. You'll see some wild stuff there. You'll see some of my handstand videos and some of my singing videos. So, but the podcast is Against the Norm, and it's, like I say, it's on Spotify. So you can.
Norman, thank you so much for coming on to my podcast.
Well, it's such a pleasure, April, to be here. You had such great questions. It animated me. It was so much fun to talk to you. It was really, really great. So thank you very much.